Have you ever stopped to think about just how many different kinds of animals there are on Earth? I mean, from the tiniest insect to the biggest whale. It's just staggering. The big question is, how in the world do scientists even begin to organize all of it? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. Let's start our grand tour of the animal kingdom. Right, so here's the challenge. You've got literally millions of species. It looks like total chaos. But believe it or not, biologists have developed a really elegant system to classify every single animal, bringing a beautiful sense of order to what seems like an endless library of life. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the basic blueprint for sorting animals. Then we'll do a quick tour of the invertebrates. Spoiler alert, that's most of them. After that, we'll meet the chordates, a real game changer. Then we'll zoom in on the vertebrates, focus on the four-limbed tetrapods, and wrap it all up with some quick facts to make it all stick. Okay, section 1, the blueprint. Before we can jump into looking at all the different animals, we need to understand the fundamental rules of the game. We have to know what biologists are looking for, things like how an animal's body is organized, or a really crucial feature called the column. Okay, let's tackle this word, column. It sounds super technical, right? But it's actually a pretty simple idea. Just think of it as the main internal body cavity that holds all your organs. It's like a protective, fluid-filled container for all your insides. And here's why it matters so much. Whether an animal has a true column, a false one, or none at all is one of the first big questions scientists ask. It's a fundamental part of an animal's internal design. All right, with that blueprint in mind, let's meet the first and by far the largest group, the invertebrates. We're talking about every animal that doesn't have a backbone. And get this, they make up something like 95% of all animal species on the planet. So yeah, we're going to move through these pretty quickly. We'll start at the very beginning with the simplest of the simple. Phylum Porifera. These are the sponges. They're so basic, they're really just a collection of different cells working together at a cellular level. Then, taking one step up the complexity ladder, you have the colentrates. Think jellyfish. They've got actual tissues, they've got tentacles, and they have these amazing little stinging cells called cnidoblasts. Seriously, they're like tiny spring-loaded harpoons they use to catch their food. Pretty cool. Now for the worms. And this is a perfect example of that column concept we just talked about. On the left, you have platyhelminthes, or, flatworms. Just like the name says, they're flat. They have no internal body cavity at all. But then look over on the right at the ashlaminthes, the roundworms. They developed what's called a pseudocolumn, a false body cavity. And that little innovation? It was a huge evolutionary leap. It allowed for much more complex organs and body systems to develop. And here are 4 more powerhouse phyla. You've got the annelids, like earthworms with their segmented bodies and that true column. Then you have arthropoda, which literally means jointed foot. This is the single most successful group on Earth. We're talking insects, spiders, crustaceans, you name it. Then there are the mollusks, the soft-bodied animals like snails and clams, often with that hard protective shell. And finally, the strange and wonderful echinoderms, meaning spiny skin, like starfish which move around using this incredible water-powered vascular system. Now, before we say goodbye to the invertebrates, we have to talk about this one small but super important group, the hemichordates, or acorn worms. They might not look like much, but they are a critical piece of the puzzle. They're seen as the evolutionary bridge to the next major group, the group that eventually includes us. And that brings us to a massive turning point in our story, the arrival of the chordates. This is where a totally new body plan shows up on the scene, one that's going to pave the way for the biggest, fastest, and smartest animals on the planet. So what is the big deal with chordates? It really all comes down to one thing, this structure called the notochord. It's a flexible rod that runs along the animal's back, providing support. For some simple chordates, that's as far as it goes. But for others, including you and me, this notochord is the blueprint, the original prototype that our embryo uses to build our backbone. It's the beginning of the internal skeleton as we know it. But it's not just the notochord. To be in the chordate club, you also need a hollow nerve cord that runs along your back. That's what becomes our spinal cord. And you need to have pharyngeal gill slits at some point in your life. Now, in fish, those obviously become gills. But in humans, they develop into parts of our jaw and even our inner ear. Okay, so now we can really zoom in on the subphylum that we belong to, vertebrata. These are all the chordates where that notochord gets replaced by a proper backbone made of bone or cartilage. And the first big split within this family was all about having a bite. The first major division was jaws. On the left, you have the agnatha. the jawless vertebrates, like lampreys. They were the pioneers, but they were pretty limited in what they could eat. But then look to the right, the gnathostomata, the jawed vertebrates. The evolution of the jaw was an absolute game changer. Suddenly, animals could bite, they could chew, they could tear. It completely revolutionized life in the oceans and opened up a million new ways to be a predator or to be prey. So after the jawed vertebrates appeared, we see another massive split. You've got the superclass Pisces, which includes all the fish, using fins to expertly navigate the water. And then you have the superclass Tetrapoda, which literally just means 4 feet. These are the animals that took those fins, turned them into limbs, and took the first brave steps out of the water and onto the land. And this is where things start to look really familiar, right? Let's spend a little time with these tetrapods, because these are the 4-limbed animals that went on to conquer pretty much every environment on the planet. So here they are, the 4 major classes. First up, you have the amphibians, still tied to the water for part of their lives. Then you get the reptiles with their tough, scaly skin that let them fully commit to life on land. From there, you get aves, the birds, who took their front limbs and turned them into wings for flight. And finally, mammalia, that's our class, defined by having hair and, of course, mammary glands to feed our young. And here's one more really critical distinction between these groups. On the left, you have what scientists call poikilothermous animals, but we just call them cold-blooded. Fish, amphibians, reptiles, their body temperature just matches whatever their environment is. But on the right, you have birds and mammals. We're warm-blooded. We're like little walking furnaces, constantly generating our own heat. And that's a huge advantage, because it lets us live almost anywhere, from the freezing Arctic to the hottest desert. Wow. Okay, we have flown through the entire animal kingdom. So let's wrap this all up with a quick fire round. Think of this as your ultimate cheat sheet for our grand tour. All right, let's lock this in. Porifera, simple sponges, cellular level. Arthropods, the most abundant group with those jointed legs. Chordata, the key is that notochord. Agnatha, those are the vertebrates that lack jaws. Tetrapoda, the animals with 2 pairs of limbs. Aves, those are the birds, warm-blooded with feathers. And mammalia, that's us, warm-blooded with hair and mammary glands. Got it? So, there you have it. When you look at it this way, from a simple sponge all the way to a human being, you realize it's all just one enormous, incredible family tree. Every animal is connected, which makes you wonder, what branch of this amazing tree are you most curious to explore next? Thanks so much for joining me.